Hello, my name is Sentana-Ries. This is part 2 of articles I wrote 17 years ago which I now place under the heading No Banker in Our Paradise. Today is the 2nd day of December 2016. For nearly 20 years since the inception of the Internet I have identified myself as authoritative to the issue of finance, and state emphatically that the current financial system must not be reformed, but must rather be abolished, and this for the purpose of freeing the people from the yoke to a system which does not work in the people's favor, as it only makes a minority rich who control the process. My position on this issue I make by the authority of an office I hold, which is recognized by all high councils of this universe. And yet that office is not a threat to anyone. It only deals with the issue of restoring a paradise to all people which was lost many thousands of years ago. Therefore no listener of my words should become offended or threatened from an implementation of the thoughts I put forth by the words I spoke 17 years ago, as they focus on one thing only, and that is to give back to the people their paradise which was lost eons ago, consisting of an environment conducive to the people's bliss, a surrounding, which I have called in my writings a paradise, even though it merely is one at the lowest level of what we can call a paradise. The essays which follow were posted on 2 discussion forums, and were also placed on our own websites at the turn of the century. We offer these audio files as a free gift under the Creative Fair Use copyright rules. And now we shall continue with the articles I posted on the 16th of May in 1999, their title I have slightly modified, now calling it, "The IMF and World Bank International Financiers Are Sorely Mistaken." I also have on occasion slightly modified the wording to improve on the style of the text presented here. Quote. Headline. Credit creation is the hallmark of a sovereign nation. The fundamental of finance is credit creation. All monies in circulation have a beginning. This beginning of money, which is called credit at the banker's end, is always a debt with recipients of such credit. All credit is subject to interest charges, which makes the repayment of any loan a mathematical impossibility. Why? Because no one creates money into circulation merely by being industrious. Only the banker issues new money. And since the money lender will never create the interest portion of a term debt into circulation, any economy is bound to collapse after a while for lack of hard cash, credit, to finance the basic economic requirements of a nation. See, when a $1,000 loan translates into $1,500 paid back to the lender after 5 years, then some other borrower got cheated out of $500 he needed to pay back his own debt, for all money in circulation is owed to the banks and was at one time or another borrowed into existence, whether it be a private citizen, a businessman, an industrial owner, or any level of government. Their borrowed money is the money in circulation. And just because some borrowers are successful in paying back their loans with interest on time, that does not mean that he created the extra $500 by being industrious. Some other borrower was made a guaranteed loser by the first one's success. The reason we don't notice a total collapse of Western economies is that all governments go progressively deeper into debt, which on a short term offsets the technical inability of a multitude of borrowers to repay their loans with interest. And how does the before stated information relate to Iraq? Very simply in that a sovereign Iraq has the power to create its own credit responsibly and without cost to an international banker. For anything which is physically possible can also be made financially possible. The only real assets of a nation are not its financial resources, but rather its natural resources lying within its boundaries in the form of minerals, oil, gas, arable land, people with know-how, and so on. And these real resources can indeed be extracted by means of a responsible way of handling the national issuing of credit based on the nation's resources. Yet this form of handling the nation's money supply, even where properly administered, is only a stepping stone in the evolution of a society to a higher level of economics, one that is functioning without cash currency at all. The danger of permitting even a reformed financial system hanging around is one that by its mere existence evil-minded men will attempt to usurp control over it, and in that manner drag the people back into a situation of slavery. More on that later. Rennie Sentana-Ries, posted May 16, 1999, 5:50 a.m. Next article. Headline. And how did all this trouble begin? At one time people used precious metals like gold and silver for money. It simplified the process of crude barter like 10 chickens for 1 sow. But people had a need for safekeeping their gold coins, etc., and so some saw an opportunity to become custodians of other people's gold. These custodians then would issue a certificate for the amount of gold held by them in trust. The certificates were much easier to use than gold coins when doing business. Any owner of a certificate could at any time go to a custodian of gold in order to redeem back into gold. But there was a charge for the service of keeping gold, and so there developed a situation where there were many more certificates in circulation than there was gold in the custodian's vaults. It must also be understood that all certificates were owned by the custodian in the form of a debt, because of the charge, for the custodian issued more certificates than he could back in gold, something the people did not know. Yet the custodian never worried about it, because people hardly ever went to redeem any certificates back into gold. Eventually the value of certificates was many times that of gold which backed it, but the people did not care, because they found the certificates so convenient to use. That is how gold-backed paper money was born. The custodian was the most powerful man in town, for everybody trusted the value of his fraudulently issued certificates. When the gold standard was finally abandoned, all gold held by these custodians, we now call banks, or bankers, fell into their hands without anybody questioning the ethics of it. That's why all the gold is owned by bankers after having pulled a fast one on the people who entrusted them with their gold in the first place. That's enough for now. Signed, Rennie Sentana-Ries, posted May 16, 1999, 5:54 a.m. End of Part 2. To be continued in Part 3, where the topics of discussion will be debt repayment, a mathematical impossibility. Happy listening.